If you ever thought about dictators, who would you think about? Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Saddam Hussein? All of these are dictators, and of course, they live outside of the United States. So it's easy for you to be like, oh, it makes sense. They're not in America. But stop the show. What if I told you you have a dictator right inside of the United States, and he has a very big budget in a very big city? Would you believe me?
Stop the cap.
No, I'm not lying. This is real truth. This dictator is Brandon Johnson. You see, a dictator is a person that has all power. And even if they don't technically have all power, they want to execute all power as if it's only them and their decisions to make on the state. And we see this all the time with dictators. At first, they pretend to be for the people. And then as they get in their presidential or prime minister tenure, we start to see changes in their behavior in which they isolate themselves from their cabinet, their government, or from the population in which they are supposed to be serving. This is no different than Tiffany Henyard out in Dayton, Illinois, and also what we see with Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago. Now, let's talk about some of the tactics that Mr. Brandon Johnson is using. First of all, he has a very big issue with the public school system. It's gotten so bad that all of them resigned.
In some words we've heard to describe what has just happened: stunning and abuse of power chaos at Chicago public schools. One alderman we spoke to said this was the worst kept secret in all of the city of Chicago, that he was anticipating that this would happen. But now in a late Friday night announcement, the mayor's office says all 7 members of Chicago School Board would, quote, transition out of their roles. We're now learning that that'll happen in the very near future, and we're told all members are resigning in the middle of teacher contract negotiations. The mayor has been at odds with Chicago Public School CEO Pedro Martinez. Previously, we reported that the mayor asked Martinez to resign. He later denied doing so. The teachers union, the powerful labor union of which the current mayor was a vocal member before assuming office, has been asking for raises for teachers. CPS CEO Martinez has opposed those raises in part because sources say he feels it is not fiscally responsible.
Then Brandon Johnson has complained about $1 billion that he needs to run the state of Illinois, and he can't get it. He's trying to cut funding in all ways that he can, except for the migrant crisis.
And amid a budget crisis and a swirl of controversies, NBC5 Investigates has learned that Mayor Brandon Johnson has signed a $100 million contract extension for Favorite Healthcare Staffing.
Now, that's the Kansas-based company that operated the city's migrant shelters for 2 years. NBC5 Investigates' Bennett Haberly is joining us now with what the mayor had to say about this. Bennett?
Well, Alex, we tried to get some clarity on this, but the mayor sidestepped our questions about why this $100 million contract extension was necessary. Instead, he talked about how his administration has saved Chicagoans money and created jobs. Since August of 2022, Favorite Healthcare Staffing has been paid $291 million to staff the city's migrant shelters through a mix of city tax money and federal funds. The company's been criticized by alders for exorbitant hourly rates between $50 to $156 per hour. And our own investigation last year showed the company routinely billed the city 84 hours per week per employee.
But then there is something that the mayor is starting to do right before our very eyes. And we're seeing this same thing with Tiffany Henyard. He's being completely rude to people who are asking him, valuable questions, or actually valiant questions to the situations about the budget. The story has come out now that Brandon Johnson spent $80,000 on renovating a room for his wife, the First Lady of Chicago, while the budget of Chicago is $1 billion in deficit.
As the city of Chicago grapples with a massive budget shortfall, NBC5 Investigates has uncovered records showing that the city spent $80,000 renovating a single office to be used by Mayor Johnson's wife, the First Lady of Chicago.
The receipts show that city workers did much of the labor and billed the city for that work. Here's NBC5 Investigates' Bennett Haberly with the story. Bennett.
Yeah, Alex and Allison, these renovation or redecorating costs, well, the mayor says won't bankrupt the city, come at a time when Chicago is facing a huge financial hole and weighing all options, including potential layoffs, to make up for this deficit. You could help define what is the role of the First Lady in your administration, and how do we justify spending upwards of $80,000 to redecorate an office for her and staff in our current financial situation?
So the Cultural Center has always been a location for dignitaries. Every First Lady has had office space, there. Renovations for my office or any other office is standard procedure.
Is there any concern about optics of spending $4,000 on a desk or $4,000 in club chairs at a time when the city is in this sort of budget hole?
Yeah, a desk is not going to, the purchase of a desk is not going to change the financial structural damage that has been in place for a very long time. So this is why we ask, and I mean this respectfully, we ask far more profound questions than that. We ask, how do we make sure that the structural damage that's been created over the course of decades, that we reroute the rivers, if you will, to make sure that it gets to the places where there's dry land. And that's what we're doing.
Johnson voiced displeasure with our questions, but they were born out of these receipts, which show an order for this executive chair costing more than $2,200, a desk labeled for the First Lady running more than $4,400, another staffer's desk $4,600, and 2 club chairs costing more than $8,000.
Now, do you actually hear that? Do you hear the sarcasm, the conceit in his voice? Do you hear the self-aggrandizing behavior that he's exhibiting? In other words, it doesn't really matter. Like, why are you asking me this stuff? Like, why are you talking to me? Who are you? Like, I'm the mayor. I'm the one that can make these decisions. If I want to have a $4,000 chair in my room or in my office, like, so what? What does it matter to you? But again, we got to look at how this guy got elected. Black Chicago is how Brandon Johnson got elected. The West Side and the South Side, okay? Even he has support from certain aldermen who he doesn't have support from them anymore, but that's a whole nother video. He was looked at as a beacon of hope. He excelled in the Chicago public school system. He has a black wife, he has black kids. He's from the West Side of Chicago. This is a brother that's supposed to understand the community and should help the community, but that's not what his intentions are. Brandon Johnson's intentions are to do whatever he feels like doing. It doesn't even matter what the aldermen think. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what the Chicago public school system believes. It's all about what he believes. And what has occurred since then? Well, the black community has been shafted again because what you thought you were supposed to get, you didn't get it. And this is black Democratic leadership going forth. If you don't believe me, just look at Dalton, Illinois, and then you come back and then you tell me if you see something different. What about in New Orleans with Mayor LaToya Cantrell? Do you see anything different? What about in Atlanta with Fannie Willis? Do you see anything different? No, these are people who are African American who became who they are because of the African American vote, and now they believe that they're better than us once they get into office, and then all of a sudden now your needs and your desires don't matter, but the big budget that I have accessible to me that I can use for my wife or for whatever I feel like using it for is the only thing that matters, and they're gonna destroy these cities, which they're already doing. So the question is, how many more of these people will come after Kamala Harris if she wins? You're gonna see a lot more African-American politicians who disrespect the community they're going to serve. It's almost a habit. You can't really be for the black community and be a black Democratic leader. You have to be for the Democratic Party and then be for yourself, then eventually get exposed for being yourself and being a crook against the community that you were supposed to help. It's a catch-22. It's like a 360 deal in rap. You know what I mean? That's what being a Democratic politician is like these days. You're going to literally be on all fours, if you understand what I'm talking about. Booty clapping sounds. So I hope black people get the message before November, because this is exactly the road that we're gonna be going down a long time in black cities unless we start to make changes in what our own personal agendas are, not just voting for people because they are black. It's good to help people because they're black. I started this channel because this channel is all about the blacks, but you have to do something else besides being black, like offering value and actually not telling lies and telling the truth and doing something for the people that supported you to get to where you're at. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson back at it again with another episode here on Ken Ganda. I'm out.